and welcome to the 2019 FIA Certified Gran Turismo Championships. It's the Manufacturer Series race for the North Americas region. My name is Tom Brooks. Alongside me is Chaz Draycott to guide you through the action for this one then. Let's take a look, shall we, without further ado, at the points rankings after 9 rounds of the Manufacturer Series. You can see that Lexus and Turismo Defsun are leading the way on 8,476 points. FTN, though, there in the Mercedes, very close behind in second position. All the drivers relatively close in terms of the point standings, all the way down to about 6th place from the top, as you can see there. But it gets even more interesting if you look further down the order here, Chaz.
Yeah, it's close all the way through. You can see the 3 TTG drivers there, 14th, 15th and 16th. There's only about 100 points between those guys as well, so all it takes is one really good result for them to just completely spin it on its head, and of course we can see that all the way through the order as well, so nobody's completely safe at this point, so hopefully the racing is just the same.
Well, of course, in the World Tour events we only have 3 drivers out of the 5 regions that we have in the top 16 superstars that will go through. At the moment, if it was the North Americas region, it would be Rd.10, for example, with Porsche that would go through ahead of the likes of Turismo Leicester, who is in 10th position if you're the lead driver for that manufacturer, and of course it's your region that is within the top 3 of the overall point standings. Then you will go through to that next World Tour event and represent that manufacturer. Speaking of the overall standings, then let's take a closer look at that one, shall we? It is Lexus that are leading the way on 564 points going into this one. 530 with Mercedes there in second place. FTN's, of course, leading that charge for the North Americas region. And as things stand, they are in a very good position to make their way through, because if you look, for example, at the Central and South America region and the Oceania region, they are very, very close, but also North America, they're just ahead of the Central and South America region. So it would be at the moment the EMEA region, the Oceania region, and then the North America region, the top 3 drivers that would then see them go through to that next World Tour event. Yeah,
it's very interesting how it all, it's very mixed in terms of who can go through, who can succeed, and just what can change it in terms of every single round. So everyone's got to really be on their toes as they go into each race.
So then let's take a closer look at the circuit the drivers are going to be competing on then here for this Manufacturer Series race of the North Americas region. It's the Sardinia road course, a new addition to GT Sport, a fictional track on the game. And you can see it's traditionally been a rally circuit, but they've implemented it as a road circuit now on Gran Turismo. And it's a very unique challenge, this one here, Chaz. As you can see, 13 turns in total, lots of tight and twisty corners, in particular this right-hander of turn 8, and also down from the start-finish straight in towards turn 1.
Yeah, there's quite an elevation change here as well, which you don't really see from many of the cameras, but 56 metres is quite a lot, although it may not sound like it. But going down to turn 1 has been very vital in the other regions as well. Hard braking zones there, and into turn 8 we've seen a lot of manoeuvres there as well. It's a very tight little right-hander, but it's quite key because there's a penalty line, as you can see there, just after it. So any drivers that are having issues there, it's a very steep uphill climb out of a slow corner, so it's really difficult to gain that time back.
And that triple apex of turns 9, 10 and 11 does make things very interesting as well. You can see side-by-side racing action through there, and we have seen a bit of drama in some of the other regions going through that particular corner as well.
Yeah, and of course people are on the throttle trying to accelerate down to those last 2 corners of 12 and 13, so people don't want to lift at all, they don't want to give any inch of space, so you never know, we may see more of that in this one, but these guys have got to really have their heads about them here, because they've got to think about the championship overall, so I reckon this is going to be an absolute corker.
Let's take a closer look at the race details then, shall we, and see what the drivers have to contend with. They're in Group 4 machines, of course, at this Sardinia Road Track B layout. Racing hard and medium compound tyres available for them. They've already had that 10-minute qualifying session that they've competed in so far. They've got a 9-lap race duration, a total driving distance of just over 35 kilometres. 10 times fuel consumption, 10 times tyre wear. Fuel not really expected to be an issue. Tyres, though, could be pretty crucial for this one. Let's have a closer look, shall we, at the strategy for this race and see what the drivers are going to have to contend with, because you can see racing medium tyres, they've got an average duration of about 5 laps in their prime. The racing hard tyres, you can get the full race distance of 9 laps out of them, but they're a second a lap slower. It's about 15 seconds or so for that pit stop, so it's kind of apples and oranges really as to what you're going to do.
Yeah, you've really got to weigh it up, because you've got to think about how much time you would lose, even if you went from mediums to mediums again. There's nothing that says they have to use both, so they could do that. If you go from mediums to mediums, though, you never know in terms of where you're going to come back out on track, who else is going to go for it, for example, because if you've got a competitor in the lead that just wants to stretch it out to the end, and you've made a pit stop, you've got a hell of a lot of time to build back up again, and you've got to make your way back through the field. So, in honesty, it probably seems the best way to just stretch it to the end and just cope with it.
Well, exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? It's if you do, as you say, if you do pit, the advantage is you've got fresher rubber. The unlikely scenario is that you won't be able to make up that time at the end of the race. So it's going to be interesting to see what the drivers will get ready to do. Speaking of that then, let's head over to the circuits, Joey, and get this one underway. So a rolling start for the North Americas region. Carl Lamb in the Alfa Romeo, who leads the way over the timing line. Then it's the Ford of TRC Stagger as we get ready to get this one underway. The drivers weaving from side to side to keep their heat into the tyres and get this rolling start underway here at Sardinia. Carl Lamb leads the field over the timing line for the North Americas region. Manufacturers Series race as the drivers head down towards that first corner for the first time. Then over the brow of the hill we come, down in towards turn one. Are any moves going to be made? Are the drivers just going to keep themselves nice and calm and composed? It looks like they are through turn number one. Quite sensible there, really. Very early to start making those rash decisions and those rash moves. Yeah,
of course, and with a rolling start as well, spreading the field out, it gives everyone a chance to just get their heads in the game and just sort of analyse what's going on around them. We can see Turismo Defson here really trying to put the pressure on TRC Stagger just in front of him there in the very lovely Aeon liveried Ford Mustang. It's a BTCC livery, goes down the inside, maybe a tiny bit of contact, but Turismo Defson getting the moves done really early on here. He's going to be a definite one to watch this race win. Carl Lamb's going to have noticed that and he'll want to try and run away, but we've seen the Lexuses have been really quick round here. It's no mistake that they're leading this championship at the moment.
No, absolutely not. Turismo Defson, the driver who is leading it for the North America region as well, and proving exactly why he does so, as Carl Lamb in the Alfa Romeo does run a little bit wide. Of course, in the Manufacturers Series, you are allowed to change manufacturers midway through different seasons as well. And, well, Carl Lamb, you can see here in the Alfa Romeo, interesting choice he's got there, because clearly it seems to be a car that's working for him. But that manufacturer, crucially, not inside the top 12 of those global rankings. So even if he does well here, it's unlikely we're going to see him at the next World Tour event.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting choice, really. I mean, we've not seen the wonderful little Alfa Romeo 4C. Look at the legs on that Lexus, though. They call it the Lexus at this rate. It's absolutely flying down the straight. And Turismo Defson taking the lead, and it's just flown away. Unbelievable pace. It's such a big lump of a machine as well. It's just showing that it's got the power behind it. There was a bit of a move in the background there. I think it was Hendricks 323 and Turismo just having a bit of a battle together. But yeah, that Lexus now out in front, the mean machine itself, is really proving its worth at the moment.
Very impressive stuff there from Turismo Defson to get himself into the lead of the race. Now the crucial thing is, can he stretch that advantage out? Look at Road Beef here on the outside as well. So we've got Lamb and we've got Beef in this race as well. Any other kind of poultry-related related names, we'll keep you updated and see if we find any more out there on track here. Look at Hendricks though, meanwhile. He's beginning to pile that pressure onto Turismo Windfire very close in front of him. Here is TTG Zenith. Of course, as you mentioned earlier on there, the three TTG drivers are not doing too well so far in this Manufacturer Series. No such dramas though for Turismo Windfire in the Hyundai, who sends it down the inside of Hendricks. Hendricks has got the inside line though into turn number 9. Through the left-hander we go, side by side they are. Hendricks has the inside line of that Audi. Can he make that move stick? Can TTG Zenith follow him through? And also Road Beef getting involved in the action as well. Hendricks has got the inside line. That's going to not be the best run he's going to get through there. Very close indeed as Windfire holds on. Here comes Road Beef down the inside of Hendricks as well. Bit of contact between them, and Zenith also following them through as well. And now Hendricks is going to have a mirror full of Toyota as AMS Cooper gets involved in the action as well. They come side by side, and here comes Turismo Leicester on the outside of him. Zenith has been given a penalty by the looks of things there for that contact that we did see just a few moments ago, but Hendricks really getting ruffled up here in the opening stages.
Yeah, that little bit of contact just unsettled him into the last corner, and it's a corner where you really have to have your line right as well, because you're carrying so much speed through there, and of course you have to think about the straight that comes after it as well, of how long it is. So TTG Zenith will be a bit gutted about that. Turismo Windfire though in this fantastic looking hider. Wow, look at the dive by Zenith down the inside. He really puts Windfire off with that there. It's all about mind games with little dummies like that. But he doesn't quite get the move done. He's done it again into the next right-hander, and Windfire gets it on the apex though. He's wise to it now after that first attempt, but it's giving Road Beef the opportunity to drive away here in the Porsche.
Very impressive stuff, and Zenith of course needs to get himself really ahead of Windfire. He's going to lose half a second as they come through that penalty zone. Side by side they come as they go in towards the right-hander of turn number 8. Zenith's car is going to ghost in a few moments time. There's a bit of contact between the right-hander as well, and Hendricks is on the inside in the background there with Turismo Leicester. Through the penalty zone we go, and Zenith does lose out then to Turismo Windfire. Leicester also finds his way through as well, and now Hendricks is in 8th position, ready to pounce on his fellow Audi driver in this race as they come through that left-hander and come through the final sector for the 3rd time.
Yeah, it's a nice little battle of the small German sports cars here, with the Porsches and the Audis and the big Hyundai in the middle of it as well, having a good scrap with them. Looking back to the front though, Turismo Defson still leading the way. Carl Lam now 2.3 seconds back, so he's just driving away with it, but he's not too far ahead of TRC Stagger, to say the least. That big Mustang filling the rear view mirror of the little Alfa Romeo 4C. It's a big David and Goliath moment here, but the nimble little Alfa though really showing the pace at the moment.
Very impressive stuff indeed. You can see them going side by side through the left-hander as well, with Zenit versus Turismo, Windfire, and also Hendricks getting involved in the mix here as well. This is a great scrap for 6th position that continues on. Here comes Zenit. He doesn't sell him a dummy this time for Turismo Windfire. He sent it up the inside. He runs a bit wide. Switchback there for Turismo Windfire. Nice and easy. And now it's Zenit versus Hendricks 323 as they come side by side through that following right-hander. Zenit with the inside line, Hendricks with the outside line. They're going to flick it left there in a couple of moments' time. Very close between them. Back into the slipstream once again. Elbows out for these drivers in the opening stages. Lap 4 we're on here, and nearly 3 wide through the right at the left-hander as they come into the right of turn number 8. Brilliant racing. Windfire on the inside, Hendricks on the outside. Zenit has got no room to move them, use the momentum that he has as they come up the hill in towards turn 9 we go. Through the left-hander, still side by side between Hendricks and Zenit through there. He manages to find his way through and back into 7th position.
It may not be going his way at the moment, but TTG Zenit has been an absolute joy to watch in this race. He's flinging that bright yellow Audi all over the place, really making the moves that people want to see. But Hendricks 323, really opportune stuff there down the around the inside, and then obviously to the outside of his fellow Audi driver. But there's a train developing behind them now, led by AMS Cooper 2K in the Toyota GT86. But wow, look at this scrap for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. These are for the last podium positions. Carl Lam there in the Alfa with TRC Stagger in the Mustang just behind him. Road Beef there in the Porsche. Turismo Leicester is also his Porsche teammate, has made it up into 5th place now as well. But this Mustang's getting bullied by the little sports cars right now.
Really is, and all the while, of course, these guys are squabbling amongst one another. It does allow Turismo Defson to just extend that advantage over 3 seconds. It is now on lap 5 out of 9 here at the Sardinia road course through that long banked right-hander. Puts a lot of pressure on the outside left tyre, and that'll be interesting to see how the drivers will contend with things. Pit window is open, doesn't look like anybody is going to be pitting, so exactly as you called it there, Chaz, everybody opting to try and do the entire race on the medium compound. Here comes Road Beef down the inside of the Mustang through the right-hander we go of turn number 8. He's got that move done nice and clean there for the Porsche driver. He finds his way onto the podium for the first time then in this race. His next target will be that Alfa Romeo 4C, and that's going to be interesting onto the start-finish straight as well. We know that Alfa quite clearly doesn't have the advantage in a straight line over its competitors. Will Road Beef have a good amount of straight line speed and that slipstream, of course, going on to that start-finish straight?
Well, you've got to think about TRC Stagger as well. We know the Mustang's quick in a straight line. He's going to have to double slipstream here, and he's starting from a little bit further back on these guys, so we'll see the front end of that Mustang gradually working its way towards us. But first of all, Road Beef going flying past in the Porsche. Makes it look nice and easy. Very simple move around the outside into turn 1. Carl Lam doesn't try and make anything back on him. He's just going to stick behind. You know, he's got a couple of laps left now anyway to make the move, so he doesn't want to try anything desperate. Just wants to assess the pace of Road Beef here, because he's had a great drive through the field, and just see where he can find that extra bit of time on him and get the move done.
Very impressive stuff indeed for these drivers. Through the left-hander we go once more, and Carl Lam here. This is where that Alfa Romeo is really good in this infield section, isn't it? You can see him having a good amount of speed going through there. He's got a good amount of grip underneath him at the moment as things stand, and he's really able to begin to pile that pressure back on to the Porsche driver. He's going to have the slipstream here going up towards the left-hander and then in towards turn number 8. Will he think about a bit of a lunge down in towards that left-hander? He's getting very close, but he opts better of it. He doesn't decide to make a move. The thing is, if he does decide to do that and it's a bit of a half-hearted move, he's going to lose more time than anything, and then he'll fall into the clutches of the man we're riding on board with here of TRC Stagger.
Yeah, that's the situation he's in now. He can't go attacking too aggressively because you've got to think about the car behind as well. So if these guys try and work together a little bit, get away from this pesky Mustang that's chasing him down, then they may be able to have a better fight. But you can just see Road Beef pulling out a bit of a gap over there now. And of course, as you said before, Tom, this Alfa Romeo not the fastest thing in a straight line. It'll be interesting to stay on board for a second with TRC Stagger though, and just watch the closing speed of this slipstream now. You can see just the outright power of the Mustang is pulling it along, gradually closing the gap. He might not be close enough trying anything on the brakes, but you never know. These boys are a lot braver than I would be in this scenario. Carl Lam shows his nose a bit, but not quite getting the move done this time round.
Yeah, we're a bit of a day late and a dollar short there for Carl Lam as things start going into there, just biding his time very nicely. Meanwhile, Turismo Windfire versus Hendricks, it's been a very big talking point so far in this race, and those guys now have managed to break a bit of a gap up to Gumball CTG, who's also made a good ascension and a very quiet ascension through the field into 8th position, now ahead of TTG Zenit, who's slowly been slipping back after getting duffed up in the early stages of that one. There is the Aston Martin of Gumball CTG. Good to see him going so well behind the wheel of that V8 Vantage Group 4 car. Then is TTG Zen, as you can see, Wardez there just inside the top 10 for Jaguar. Very close racing between all of these guys. The field just beginning to settle themselves down, get themselves into those rhythms, because of course in the early stages, as with pretty much any race, it gets pretty frenetic and pretty action-packed. The guys just sort of settle themselves down, get involved in their own groups as the pace begins to spread out, the field begins to spread out towards the closing stages of this race.
Yeah, this is more the analytical period, as I tend to call it sometimes, where you've got a couple of laps left, you've got to weigh up who's around you, what sort of pace they're at in comparison to you, and where you can get the moves done. These guys, such as Turismo Windfire, for example, he's chasing down Hendricks now. In a realistic sense, he's going to know that he could probably only make one more place in this race, and it is going to be by passing Hendricks, because he's not going to be able to get to the guys ahead of them and close that gap to Turismo Leicester. So he's just going to be biding his time at the moment, just identifying the opportunities, and then making the move at the right point is where he could obviously keep that position to the very end. Good
legs on that Audi in the straight line as well. They're going through the left-hander of turn number 1. You can see him not having the slipstream advantage, but also managing to find his way through as Wardez has actually gone tumbling down the order a little bit. Here comes Carl Lam versus Roadbeef, though, for second place down the inside of the left-hander. Manages to make his way through, but Roadbeef is going to have the inside line for the following right-hander. Takes that position back as easy as it was taken from him. This is a great scrap as well. And also TRC Stagger there in the background in the Ford Mustang, not too far away, ready to try and take advantage here as well. If anything happens between them, of course, if they start squabbling amongst one another, you know that Mustang is going to close up, and he's going to get involved in this action as well. Penultimate lap we're on here at the Sardinia road course for the Manufacturer Series race for the North Americas region. Bit of a wiggle out of the right-hander there for Roadbeef. Will that compromise his drive through the left-hander? No, it doesn't. Doesn't compromise the speed he takes through there. Keeping himself relatively calm and composed at the moment here is Roadbeef, not succumbing to too much pressure from behind of Carl Lam, and this is where we know Carl Lam, sadly, does not have the advantage coming onto this start-finish straight in a straight line. The good thing is he'll have the slipstream. However, is he going to be able to try and do anything with it? He gets a great exit out of the final corner of turn 13 here. He tries to pull alongside Roadbeef. Is he going to be able to do so? Yes, he certainly is. That was a really good exit, whilst Roadbeef got a comparatively poor one. The Alpha pulls alongside as we come onto the final lap here at the Sardinia road course. He gets himself ahead even before the turn 1 they go into, and now he's into second position, so it's Roadbeef's work to do all over again. So Lamb versus Beef, we do have quite literally on track at the moment. Which one is better? You're going to have to wait and find out, because it's going to unfold over the course of this last 3.8 kilometre long circuit.
Yeah, it's like some strange sort of farmyard battle. We've got Carl Lam representing the lamb, we've got Beef representing the cow, and then Stagger representing the horse in the form of the Mustang. It's like some strange mixed grill. But Roadbeef wants to hold on to this final podium position, of course. Stagger's putting the pressure on, but he's not really making inroads to them at the moment. He's not in a position where he can make a move. But Carl Lam seems to be running away with it in this last lap. He's almost like he saved his tyres chasing Roadbeef down, and then just popped out and run away with it. But I mean, speaking of running away with it, Turismo Defson, 4-second gap at the moment. Here he is in the very mean-looking Lexus. I'm a really big fan of how that car looks, and it seems to go well as well, of course. He's really showing its worth at the moment, but seems like quite an easy ride for him as he comes into the last few corners.
Absolutely brilliant. Here is Turismo Windfire versus Hendricks side by side. They go for position, and Windfire goes the long way round the outside. Absolutely brilliant stuff from the Canadian driver. He finds his way through into 6th position right in the closing stages of this one. Meanwhile, Turismo Defson over the timing line, a lights to flag victory. A brilliant race for the Lexus driver, and look at 3rd position to the line between TRC Stagger, who just nips it by a whisker over Roadbeef. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Poised exactly where he needed to, pounced exactly where he needed to, and he takes that final spot on the podium at the very end of that race. Hugely exciting stuff here. So the podium is Defson, who takes victory, Carl Lam in 2nd place, and TRC Stagger in the Ford Mustang in 3rd position. Absolutely brilliant driving from all involved. Clean racing for the vast majority. Great respect for all of their competitors, and that is exactly what we wanted to see here in this North America's region race.
That was a fantastic race to watch. Really clean driving, like you say, Tom. Everyone's showing loads of respect, little bits of argy-bargy here and there, but that's what we like to see, and especially in these sorts of cars. you can get away with that and you can have a bit of it as long as you give what you get, you know what I mean? It's just very, very close action-packed racing. And of course, a very deserving winner in Turismo Defson. What a fantastic drive. 25.7 being his best lap. A good couple of tenths quicker than the other guys as well. Although 25.8 for Road Beef, so it shows he had the pace. But as I was saying before, I think he might have killed his tyres in maintaining second place and trying to defend from Carl Lamb. And of course, Stagger made the move while it was the right time. Same with Turismo Windfire. I was saying earlier, he was just following his competitor around and he got it done at the right time and managed to get the result.
Yeah, pounced exactly where he needed to, did Turismo Windfire. You can see Wardez there did manage to get back into the top 10 at the end of that one, ahead of AMS Cooper, FT Ant, Outlaw Quadrant, TGT Zenit down in the wars in 13th position, Gumball in 14th, STR JMag in 15th position, and then Bill Barder down there in 16th place, a race to forget for Barder. So let's take a look, shall we, at the points rankings after that one and see exactly where the drivers sit after 10 rounds of the Manufacturers Series. So no change at the top. Turismo Defsun extends his advantage at the top of the order. Big drama, though, as FT Ant from second down to fourth after TRC Stagger and Carl Lamb make some good ground inside the top 12 positions. That's exactly what we needed to do. And great to see Carl Lamb there as well. I mentioned earlier on, incorrectly I should say as well, that the Alfa Romeo wasn't inside the top 12 in terms of the points rankings for this region. Of course, I was incorrect. It's not in the global manufacturer standings for the Alfa Romeo, but good to see Carl Lamb there inside the top 3 positions.
Yeah, fantastic stuff to see. Such a big shift as well from just one race, but that's the beauty of these series, is that when you get that result that really matters, you'll get straight back into the fight of it, and it's fantastic to see. Road Beef, of course, though, still the top Porsche driver there. He's got quite a bit over Turismo Leicester, who has gone up a spot, of course, but it's so tight in that midfield that you never know what could happen as the final few rounds come about.
Well, speaking of the global manufacturers rankings, then let's take a look and see where the manufacturers do sit then after this race. You can see Lexus still at the top, 574 points. They extend that lead over Mercedes-Benz there in second position. Toyota in third place, still very close between them and Jaguar for third position. The smallest of margins separating them. Peugeot and Chevrolet still tied on points and still very close at the bottom of the order as well, between Porsche and Audi, just on the fringes of that top 12.
Yeah, it's so close all the way through. I wouldn't like to try and call it as the next rounds come about, but like I just said, that is the wonderful thing that you see from this. It's so competitive, round after round. You don't get a runaway winner every single week. It's just whatever you see each time is what you get. And there's so much close racing between these guys, and it's good that it's reflected in the points as well.
Certainly is. Well, let's get ready to have a look at the next World Tour event, shall we, that takes place in August. The World Tour 3 event for the FIA Certified Gran Turismo Championships on the 24th and 25th of August in New York. We really hope you can join this one. We'll be bringing you action from the Manufacturer Series and the Nations Cup on Saturday and Sunday as well. From myself, Tom Brooks, and from Chaz Draycott, thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you in New York.